how did you become a photographer, and how did you end up photographing the US Air Force? That's incredible.
So I actually started off joining the military randomly when I was 19. Like I made it through like 3 semesters of university and just freaked out and want to do something crazy. So I joined the Air Force, and you have to pick your job when you get enlist, and you have to take a test, and the test, like it's like an aptitude test, and it determines kind of like how smart you are. And then it opens up what jobs you can have. So I actually picked to be a linguist. And I went through boot camp the whole time thinking I was going to be a linguist. And at the end I panicked and said I didn't want to be a linguist anymore because it was like a 2-year school and I was learning Arabic and I was freaking out. So I switched, and still photography was the only thing available.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's amazing. How did you end up learning Arabic? Was that the language that you chose, or was it because of the region you were in? Or
it was because it was 2004. And that was what they needed us to know at the time. Essentially, you're like training to be like you're listening to chatter, right? And you're just, like, I don't know, you're listening to chatter, and you're just sitting there kind of translating everything. So I didn't want to do that. So I ended up stationed in Ramstein, Germany for my first 2 years. So, and then I went to San Antonio, Texas for my last 2 years. I did mostly like a lot of Air Force news. And then toward the end, I did a lot of hospital photography, which is horrifying. And nobody wants to do that. So yeah, so it's an interesting transition into weddings for sure from what I was doing, and a lot more fun.
Wow. Okay, cool. And so when did you become a wedding photographer? Can you share a little bit around like how that even happened? Like how did you get into weddings?
I pretty much just picked up a camera again. Like after I took a break for like 5 years. And then I picked up a camera again, kind of started randomly shooting. And then my husband played hockey in the US and in Europe for a long time. And then when he retired, we moved back here, and I had one skill set, which I wasn't that good at. Like it's very different. And I remember thinking, oh, this will be fine. And then I was totally in over my head. But I kind of figured it out like as I went. Yeah. So naturally, I honestly just started shooting everything. And then I just like decided I wanted to shoot weddings. So I did everything like totally the wrong way. I never second shot a wedding before I shot. Like I just dove right into it. Worst idea ever. But I shot my first wedding for free. Like I put an ad on Craigslist and I shot a wedding for free, and ended up being so awesome. And I still talk to them, but I feel really bad for the photos I gave. They were horrifying.
Fair play. So what year was this? And
2014.
That was 2014. Okay, cool. Do you still use Craigslist for anything?
Oh my God. It's horrifying. That's like Facebook Marketplace, I guess, but not Craigslist. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I don't remember. I used to log onto Craigslist all the time for like a good 10 years. I was on Craigslist for random things a lot. Yeah. Now it's like scary, I think.
Yeah. It's we have like different things in England where I'm from for things like that. And when I first got here, like Craigslist was, I swear it still looks the same, but Craigslist was a great place for job postings and finding an apartment and things like that. That's what I definitely used it for. But I've heard so many starting stories of wedding photographers being on Craigslist, and I'm just curious. I wonder what the opportunities are there now.
Well, probably not that great. But the thing is, Craigslist, you're so anonymous. Like there's like Facebook Marketplace, you have a profile attached to anything you post so they can creep you. But like Craigslist, you literally have no idea what you're getting. Like it could be anybody. I could be like just absolutely full of shit, just posting whatever I want, and they would have no idea.
Totally.
Even your email's anonymous.
Yeah, but you met some great people through it, and you're still in contact with them.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'm not saying for weddings like that's the place to go, but it's just a place that there could be some interesting opportunities there for, like, if you were interested in maybe doing a specific type of like portrait shoot and you're looking for a specific type of creative and things like that. And because sometimes we can end up in a bubble so much, right? Whereas this is everyone. So anyway,
that's true. You'd have to do some serious filtering, I feel like. But
yeah, true. Maybe it's not a good idea. So don't do that. Awesome. So wedding photographer from the US Air Force, like you mentioned well, how did you move to Canada? You mentioned your husband, and it was
So
because of that, or was it?
well, my husband is from, like, he grew up in Surrey. So I think when you have a choice between moving to Kansas or moving to British Columbia, like, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So nobody ever wants to sign up and be like, I want to live in Kansas. Like, nobody wants to live in Kansas. Everyone wants to leave Kansas. So no, British Columbia was kind of like the only option. We were between that and Alberta. And again, there really is no comparison. No offense to any of the Albertans out here, but even when I go visit, I'm like, it's too cold for me. Can't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we moved here, and then we didn't really know if we were going to stay here, because you just don't know. Like, we're kind of nomads. So it's the longest either one of us has ever lived anywhere, I think.
Yeah. I think I've approached like 12 or 13 years now in Canada. So it's just like a quarter of my life. It's definitely not the longest place I've been, but it's pretty insane how quickly the years fly. And
they fly
so quick. Yeah. All right, great. And so you're married, you have 4 kids, a dog.
We have 4 kids. We have a dog.
A lot going on.
We don't have any fish.
No fish yet?
No fish.
Okay.
Oh my God.
And so when we were catching up before this call, you were talking about increasing your pricing and wanting to scale back. So I really wanted to dive into that, because when we get into wedding photography or like live life as an entrepreneur, it can get busy very quickly. And you've gone through like many years of shooting weddings, being a photographer. What has made you decide to, in the last little while, like scale down? Can you give us a bit of a background?
Yeah. So I feel like every year you do that thing where you raise your prices, and every year you freak out about like raising your prices. Like, I'm raising my prices. What if I don't book? What if people laugh at my prices? What if they think I'm psycho? But then you kind of you always fill out your schedule either way.
Yeah.
So I was kind of depending on, like, raising my prices will scale me down automatically. Like, it'll just do it for me. And that never happened. So then I just like kept taking on more and kept taking on more. And then too, like, you kind of get a little bit blinded by like, look how much money I can make at the expense of like what you're doing to yourself. So I feel like after 2020 and 2021 just kicked the shit out of me. Last year I paid for it hard. So I'm just going, like, I'm even seeing like client pairings I wouldn't have taken on in 2022. And I'm shooting weddings for them, and nothing against them, but it's just like, I'm just seeing like myself kind of transition and like what I'm more interested in, and kind of what kind of clients I take on. And so I'm trying to really, what's that?
Oh, you were saying client. I didn't catch what you said there. What sort of clients, or what
I feel like I just noticed that the weddings I was shooting last year that I booked in 2021 or 2020, I wouldn't have taken on last year. You know what I mean? Like, I noticed the things I was taking on like 2 years ago, actually shooting it and going, this is so crazy. This is not even my client. Like, and I think I've transitioned so much so that even like 1 or 2 years having that lag, you realize like the people that you're working with, you probably wouldn't have worked with, or like the type of wedding, or even just, not anything against those people. It's just that there's better photographers for them. And I just wasn't that. So I felt like I was just getting beat down so much last year. And then I was just like, every time I had to leave the house, I was just dying, like just dreading it. And then the kids were freaking out. And then that was a whole other thing. There's just another level of mom guilt too, when they don't see you at all. So this next year I was like, every year I'm like, I'm not going to take on as much. And then I blow that and do it the same thing. And this year I like actually stuck to it. I'm like, I'm not doing it. Like, I remember having this conversation with Danae, who's right. And I was like, I'm taking 12 weddings. She's like, yeah, we'll see. Or are you actually going to take 12 weddings? I'm like, I swear to God, I'm going to take 12 weddings, and I'm only at 12. I'm not taking any more. So yeah, I just feel like for my own sanity, like I was really starting to lose my mind. And I remember there was an ARC speaker, and I could not remember who said this, but it was like a couple years ago. I remember he said, when his business was in the best stage, his family life was shit. And when his family was in the best stage, his business was shit. And he was like, there was just like this crazy balance he couldn't figure out. And I feel like that's kind of where I was last year.
Okay, cool. So what do you feel like is the secret then? What have you learned from that, being up on both sides, and how does one find that balance?
Well, I'm kind of still transitioning, so
Okay.
I feel like I don't have the 100% answer on that. But I do know that I've been like way more forthcoming and like honest in any consults I have. Like I always have had to talk to people before I book them. Like I would never book somebody without talking to them. But I feel like the questions I'm asking and also the way I'm answering questions is way more honest than I think I've ever been in the past. Like I think you kind of get to this comfort zone where people are wanting these things and you can give it to them, but you're not going to like it when you're doing it. And I would just be like, oh, it's fine, I can do it. But now I'm like, no, you know what? I don't do that. Like without even a thought. And it's just so easy because at the end of the day, like not that I don't care either way. I just don't want to compromise to book a client.
Yeah.
So like,
great.
I know it's going to fall in like exactly where I want to be. And then I'm not going to regret it.
Awesome.
So when I work, it's not going to.
Yeah, totally. So like you're going into the season and could you share with us a little bit around like this kind of client that you want for anyone listening who like loves your work? How would you describe your work and the kind of client that you love working with?
So I think like typically my client is like mid-20s to mid-30s. That's like my ideal. And someone who pays for a lot of their wedding by themselves. Someone who's like, I don't know, like I don't want to price myself out of the fun people. I think that's a challenge I'm also dealing with because I find like if you get too high, you kind of end up with a different client. And I don't know, I haven't quite figured out that part yet. But I just really want someone who I can have an easy conversation with and the stuff they're saying, I'm totally clicking with. Because sometimes people talk and they're like, what they want for their wedding day. It's like, I'm going like, what in the hell is this day gonna look like? And I'm like, I can't even picture it in my brain. So I'm like, you know what? I might not be your girl. Like you might need someone who's like a little bit more tailored to kind of what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it is clicking personality wise, because it's a long 8 hours to spend with someone you don't like. And you don't have to like your clients, but you kind of do. Like the more you like them and the more you click with them, the more you want to like really give them like this unbelievable experience. And like this, like you want them to feel so good all day. You want to pump them up all day and you want them to like actually love their photos. And you want to see the connections they have and you want to see all that stuff. And that's the kind of stuff that's easier to look for when you're not looking at your client like, I hate you. Right. So, like, I mean, if one, like, when you have like, if there's any bump in the road in a day where there's like a personality conflict, it's like, it takes like, you have to put your big boy pants on to forget about that and be like, no, I'm here to do a job, not taking this personally, just moving on. Right. But it's not easy.
Definitely. So you've come to, thanks for sharing that. You've come to this point in your career where you like really know who your ideal client is, what you're charging, the confidence is really up there and you feel great about scaling down and taking on a certain amount of clients. So do you feel like a photographer has to kind of go through the pain of the journey that you've been on to get to where you are, or do you feel like there could be a shortcut in there if you apply?
Well, I hope not. I hope not. Like I'm a little bit of a glutton for punishment personality. Like I like to do things that other people think are crazy. Like I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to take a road trip with 3 kids by myself, like for 12 hours. And people are like, what is wrong with you? And that's my personality. I just like to do I take on giant projects like the day before I have to do something important, or that's just my personality. So I'm working through that, obviously. But I just take on so much. Like, I'm just like, no, I'll be fine. I take it on. And then I'm like looking at my schedule and going, what did I do to myself? And it's my own fault. Like I did it to myself. So I feel like kind of understanding that you actually have to have a rest period. You actually have to take care of yourself. You actually have to like take those steps to make sure you're drinking enough water. And it sounds so stupid, but when you're shooting a wedding, like you die. Yeah. Like it's really taxing on your body. So, and I'm getting close to 40 now. I'm feeling my age a little bit more. Like, I mean, I also used to be able to drink 3 days in a row, and now I have 2 drinks. I'm hungover for 4 days. So, I mean, you kind of like, it wears on you, right? So I feel like just understanding that, like, you also have to take care of yourself, even if you're doing like a service-based thing and you're creative and all this stuff, it takes a lot out of you, right?
Definitely. Yeah, I can relate to that. I'm 41 now, and about 5 years ago, just really realized like how much I've got to like take care of my body. If I want to have longevity in this career, then I've got to start like, doing more yoga, stretching more and hydrating more, and having like a routine, just like an athlete would, like post wedding and the morning after it. And it's these little things that just go like a really long way. And then you can extend your career, and then you can like continuously shoot the amount of weddings, or doing back-to-backs and things like that is key. So I'm curious, with the schedule, or you're scaling business down, what are some of the boundaries that you've set? Or like when you look at your calendar, are there dates blocked out? How are you going to be able to really stick to the kind of the parameters that you've set?
Okay, so for sessions specifically, and I'm pretty sure this was your idea like 4 years ago, you're like, just shoot sessions on one day and do like more than one. I'm like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? So now I have a Calendly link that I send out, and it has like I think there's like 4 spots a month that people can do a session, but it literally has a time, and there's you can pick from 3 different locations. Like I'm not like, I don't want to, I live in Langley. If I'm driving to like White Cliff Park, it's like, that's a 4-hour work. That's not worth it for a session for me. Or I could go to Campbell Valley, which is 10 minutes down the road, shoot a session and make the exact same amount of money in 1 hour. So for me, like if I'm just grinding out sessions, like that's where I want to be, especially because I shoot mostly family sessions, and I don't want to take your 1-year-old for an adventure. Like that's just not how I shoot. That's not what I want to do. So that's not what I do. So I basically give people like, here's a calendar link and it has these times, and that's it. Like there's nothing else. So if it doesn't fit for them, it doesn't work, and that's fine. But I'm not shooting on weekends. I'm not like, if I'm not shooting a wedding, my weekends are for my family. Like I leave them enough. So I'm trying to really like stick to that. And I find that it actually works fine, because people will always ask for weekend dates. If you give them weekend dates, I just say, no, I don't shoot on weekends. And then it's fine. And then they just figure it out. Like people shoot at 3 p.m. on weekdays, even though they work real jobs that are 9 to 5, they'll figure it out if they want their photos done. So I just stopped kind of compromising myself and started just giving options.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a take it or leave it. And it seems to work fine. Like it was kind of scary again at first, but I feel like if you say it like matter of factly, people will just do what you want them to do, weirdly enough.
Totally. And also you're the expert, right? Like, and you know when it will work best. And also if they really love you and your work, which they do, then they'll find a way to make it happen. And also I just find from the reverse side, like being the client or the, the person who's booking the portrait session, is just so much nicer. Like when the photographer guides you and says, this is like how it works, this is when it works, and these are my dates, and all those options are just clarified, because it's just this date at this time in this location. Cool. Yeah. Like, oh, we'll make it work.
Well, you could do like 10 emails back and forth trying to pick times and dates and places and all that stuff. So I just feel like if you just give it to them, then it's like, oh, okay, awesome. Sign up. Here we go.
Totally. If anyone's doing the back and forth, does this date work? Does this date work? Let me ask my partner, whatever. Like, please just do yourself a favor, get a Calendly link and a booking system, figure that out and send that off with your dates, times, locations, and it becomes way easier. So I see for anyone who's here live, we have like questions that you can ask Erin live and in the chat. So if you're watching the replay of this, please come and check it out. We'd love for you to be here. For anyone who is here right now, please, if you have any questions for Erin as we go along, place them in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them. So last bit on this like crazy couple of years that you've had, and with the stress, can you shed a bit of light into like what you feel like it was like at its kind of worst, and then how you overcame that? Like what did you kind of go through, and how did you
so it was 2019 I had my last child in January, and I was like, oh, I'll be totally fine by the summer, because the year, like My third child, I started shooting 3 weeks after he was born. Like, I don't recommend that to anyone. That was a stupid idea. But I was kind of already booked, and it was it just worked out that way. So I just had to just grin and bear it kind of thing. But in 2019, I started to have like stomach problems, and I thought that I was having an ulcer, and I went to the doctor, and he gave me a mental health assessment. And I was like, why are you giving this to me? He's like, it is not a stomach problem. You have stress problems. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I just kind of ignored it. And then the next year, my hands started to go numb.
Wow.
So like I started feeling like I'd literally lose like feeling in my hands. So that's like another stress manifestation. And then last year I started to get migraines, like insane migraines. Like I couldn't function, like throwing up, like so bad. And finally the natural path, because doctors can only do so much. Like I had CT scans, MRIs, everything. Like they were trying to figure out what's wrong with me. And the naturopath's like, it's stress. Like it's stress. Like there's nothing you can do. You need to lower your stress. And I'm looking at my schedule and my kids and my family and the sports and going, how the hell can I lower my stress? Like I can't. So I'm like, okay, so I'm basically forcing myself now, because she made me read this book called When the Body Says No by Gabor Maté. And it was like so eye-opening for me.
Gabor Maté.
Gabor Maté, yeah. And it was so eye-opening for me. So I was just like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? I got to figure this out. And I think I operate at a higher stress level than most people, just existing, because I've just created so much like stress for myself. When my kids are in multiple sports, I'm never home. Like it's just like always a thing. And then I decided to get a dog. So I just like do things to just add to my stress when I don't need to. But yeah, so kind of figuring that part out was another thing. Trying to like not try to do everything perfectly, just kind of get it done.
Yeah.
Because I'm such a weird perfectionist. So yeah, that was a struggle.
Wow. So yeah, it's like playing life on like level 9 or 10, and then like trying to figure out ways to reduce that. And so the book, any like major takeaways? I definitely want to check that out. And I also want to share a bit of my own experience of like going through stress and then realizing like the impact that I had on my body, and then just briefly what I did around that. But what was like a key takeaway from that book for anyone who's thinking about picking it up?
I think just like I guess I'm just so oblivious to the fact that stress can actually manifest itself physically. I didn't know that. Like, I mean, I just thought there's got to be a reason, I'll figure this out and then it'll go away. But it actually, like long-term, there's like things in that book about long-term stress is like one of the number one causes of heart disease. And like the stuff in there, and like autoimmune diseases and all that stuff. And it's just amazing being able to like go, holy shit, like I got to figure this out. Like your health can deteriorate so fast with something that's like so easily preventable. So, and you don't think of photography as a high stress job, obviously. Like people outside are like, how the hell is photography high stress? But I don't think they realize how you kind of have to be on all the time. Like if you're shooting like consecutive days, like you literally feel like your brain is just like on 10 all the time. Like you always have to be like, let's go, or let's, like you're the eternal optimist. You're supposed to make everything smooth over and happy, and then have all these great ideas and be super creative and think of awesome angles, and then make people like you, and then remember people's names, and over again. Like I was telling you earlier, but I trained my sister-in-law to be my second shooter this year. And she thought it was going to be a walk in the park. And she's like, I remember the first 10-hour, we shot a 10-hour wedding in Whistler. We drove up and back in the same day. And then it was 10 hours and it was like pouring rain. It was like the worst in June sometime. And the next day she was like, nobody talked to me. Like, oh my God. She's like, I feel like I went on a bender. I don't know how you do this. This is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Like, she like equated it to like those like long shifts as a bartender on your feet, talking to people nonstop. And I think that's probably the closest thing I have to relate it to, is like being a server.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, but yeah, I don't know. I just think that it's way higher stress than you think it is.
Yeah, totally. It's like problem solving, continuously being alert, being aware, making sure you don't knock things over, but then also getting the shot, being present for the moment. And it's just so many things. And so your brain is like constantly solving equations and and calculating simultaneously whilst getting all of these photos for a couple.
Yeah, within a time constraint, and also knowing everything about where the sun is. Like, like people are like, what time is sunset on March 17th? You know, like it's like you have to know all these things, and you have to be able to anticipate it, and then know where it's going to be, when it's going to be, and tell everyone, and then be right. Because if you're wrong, that's messed up too. So it's like you have to always have the right answers, and you can't just go, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, I don't know, but I'll figure it out right now.
Yeah, totally. There's something about, though, being a wedding photographer specifically and kind of enjoying that challenge and enjoying that problem solving. And you know, recently I've just been thinking more and more about like kind of my background, having a maths degree and just like solving these equations, and then it works. And I think that's what I love about weddings is if I'm in the right place at the right time, I just have to point my camera in the right direction and it works. And then you're solving those kind of creative problems, so to speak. And then you're also solving and helping this couple have an amazing day on their wedding, plus all their family and friends. So yeah, so there's something about that type of creative that must enjoy that as well, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be able to do it for how many years, like 7 years you've been doing it now. So
yeah, no, and I thrive in stressful situations. And two, I think my personal life is so stressful that like a wedding to me is like a walk in the park.
Correct.
It's so funny. It's like the most calm I'm ever. Like my husband thinks it's so weird. He's like, people always say how relaxed you are. You're the opposite of relaxed. I'm like, I know, but at weddings, I am chill. It's like, I feel no stress.
That's true. I've worked with you and I've shot with you, shot a wedding with you. And yeah, you as the lead, you were definitely very, very chill. And it was great to see.
I don't know why. I'm not a chill person. Like my husband says I'm a psycho. Like a psycho. He was like, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, Erin's so relaxed. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? It's my outlet.
Yeah. The just to briefly touch upon that kind of where I was going with the gut issues and stress. And the book that you mentioned, I think Gabor Maté is even from Vancouver, like, so you might even see him around. But I've heard his name a lot. And
he just went viral for that post about the downtown, like the east side or whatever. He was talking about it was like a TikTok that they posted about him talking about like the Hastings, and it went viral. It was like one of the most shared things I've seen this last year.
Oh, wow. Cool. Yeah. So for me, like one thing that I realized, like 2019 was one of the like hardest years of my life. I traveled about 8 times back and forth between Vancouver and London. My dad wasn't doing great at all. He had dementia. That was the year that he eventually passed in November. I was also simultaneously in November running a conference for wedding photographers. That was about 10 days after he passed away. And so it was like shooting weddings, going back home, seeing my dad, because we thought we were going to lose him in May. Then I came back, shot a wedding in Tofino, flew back to see him because it was still touch and go. And I wanted to obviously be there with him and my family. And it was just a lot of that year because we just didn't know. And it was super stressful, but my morning routines and my practices like helped carry me through all of that. However, 2019 happened, November, he passed. And then the grief going through the conference, travel again, and all of it was obviously super stressful. And whilst I thought I was managing it as I was going along, then obviously COVID happened, 2020, March, like 3 months after. And all of that stress from that year kind of accumulated and so much so that it affected my gut. And then I started to have like crazy breakouts like on my forehead and I thought it was food. So it's kind of like getting stressed and thinking, oh, it's the kind of mental exertion of what I'm doing or the physical exertion of what I'm doing on the wedding day. But there's like a deeper underlying stress that's there. And then, like you said, it manifests in different ways. And it just so happened to affect my gut and went through like a 2-year process of just these crazy waves of just acne that was on my forehead. I've never had really acne at all in my life, but as a 40-year-old, I suddenly had it. And And what it is at the root, it was like finding the source of this stress. And so, you know, if you're ever going through anything that is super stressful, or it is manifesting in certain ways in your body or physically, do some like deep journaling, some deep diving, and check out the book that Erin mentioned. It's super key, I think, to solve these things. And a naturopath is the final thing. It was actually the naturopath who holistically looked at me and my life and things that I had been through, and that was asking I felt really the right questions to help uncover what it was. And then it was actually resolving things with my dad and going through that grief, because I hadn't fully actually grieved his loss. And whilst I was grieving, COVID 2020 happened. We were on lockdown, and everyone knows what happened after that. So it was things there that I really had to go. So I just wanted to just share that with anyone who is experiencing some kind of stress physically and wants to get to the root of it. So a few takeaways. Paula is asking in the chat, what was the name of that book, Erin?
When the Body Says No.
Thank you. Awesome, Paula. Yeah, let us know how you find that book. So moving on to a lighter side of things, you were talking about your sister shooting this wedding with you, and how long has that been happening? And yeah, you know, physically, I know it's been painful for your sister, but now I think she's your second shooter, and
yeah,
that definitely must help a lot. How's that been?
So her name's Jordan, and she is obviously, I've known her for 15 years, like forever, and she's always kind of been into photography, which is funny. She had a camera like long before I even owned a camera. Like she was always like whatever. So she decided last year that she was going to start doing like family photos and stuff. So it's kind of giving her here's what you should do, here's what you shouldn't do, here's all the mistakes I made, please don't do this. And then just kind of trying to set her up. And it kind of transitioned into me being like, well, why didn't I just like train you like we did? So we did like sessions just one-on-one, and then we did like lots of computer stuff, and then we kind of went into like shooting and all like basically I just told her like, these are my bread and butter settings, this is how I do it, it's not always right, like everybody does it differently, but this is how I shoot. So it kind of worked out that she started shooting with me, because if you train someone to shoot like you shoot, it's nice to bring them. So sometimes, and she's unbelievable. Like some of the shots, like I go through my second shooter galleries. I'm like, holy shit, like this is your first year. Like, oh my God. Like it's amazing how I think with like mentorship and stuff, people can just like flourish so quickly. And then, so she's my go-to. And also finding second shooters last year, everyone knows was impossible because everyone was so booked. So it kind of worked out.
Definitely. And so she's going to be working with you this year and on into the future.
Yeah.
Great.
That's awesome. So she's my designated second shooter.
Perfect. That's great. And so is she looking to start up her own business? Is she
so she does family photos on her own. Like cool. I don't know if she'll be doing weddings, but she's definitely doing like her own kind of session. She also has a full-time job, so it wouldn't be like her main source or anything, which works out nicely for me. But yeah, so it's super fun. And then she took up, this is so rude, but she took all the, so like, you know, when you're a photographer and then all your friends want the family photos done, and then you are their designated family photo person, but you don't want to charge them because they're your friends. So she took over all those, which is so awesome for me because I was kind of running out of time. Right. So yeah, so that worked out nice.
That's
too.
Great. That's great. Awesome. I wanted to chat to you about Instagram Reels, because since Reels have like really taken off, and I've found that you've been like one of the most consistent in putting things out there. Like if I ever see a photographer creating Reels, it's typically you, and they're always just like very you as well, like pushing the edge of kind of like maybe what you can do, what you can say.
Yeah.
Especially if your brand is different. These are some of the things that maybe you wouldn't see from like a wedding photographer, but because of you and your brand, you definitely have like a different vibe to it. So for anyone who hasn't seen your Reels, can you kind of like share a little bit around what they may expect to see and how you also got to that place with Reels?
Yeah. So I kind of run this like balance between doing reels to other photographers, like here's a relatable photographer thing, and then doing reels like directed at a client. And interestingly enough, some of them are a little bit offensive. Like I'm not going to say that I don't like ride that line pretty hard, but that's my personality too. So the things that I say and do in my reel, I would probably say and do in real life. So it's not actually that weird. Like I find it like, ooh, some people might not like that, but that's kind of just everything I do in general. So I feel like I do have that, but yeah, I find them so fun. Like I know photographers hate reels, and I know that photographers are like, oh, I don't want to do reels, whatever. It's unbelievable the reach that you get with reels, even if they suck. Like, and I think the hardest part of doing reels is realizing that it's not going to be perfect, but it's better to put out something than nothing. So the stuff that gets the most engagement, the stuff that people like, or the stuff that makes you laugh, I think like that's just what I look for. Like if I'm laughing out loud, or I'm like, oh my God, how did they hit that nail on the head so hard? So many things, like not even just with photography, like, you go through reels and someone posts a reel about something and you're like, oh my God, I thought I was the only person experiencing that. And then how did you just bring so much light? How are so many people agreeing? Like this happens to everybody, but it's just the stuff that you don't want to talk about. So I feel like I really like kind of target ideal clients with my reels. Like what did I do? I did one last year that was like trends I hope die in 2021, or that was 2 years ago. People did not like that. And I don't care, because it was like, it was true. It was the stuff I'm so sick of seeing. And I even had clients after that be like, oh my God, don't get mad at me. There's pampas grass at my wedding. I'm like, oh my God, it's a reel. I don't actually care what's at your wedding.
Yeah.
But it was like, that's what people are actually watching and listening.
Yeah.
And it's pretty funny. Like, I don't think I've had any person tell me they want to look skinny since I posted a reel about that. Because that's like my nightmare. When people are like, I just want to look skinny. I'm like, oh my God, someone kill me. And that's like, I posted a reel about that, and I don't think I've had one person say it since.
Wow, fair play. So you can totally just like manifest or create what you want in terms of like your clients and how you want things to go. And you mentioned about reach, and that's definitely one of the things that I found for sure as well, is you can post a photo and then it will reach your quote unquote followers, but when you post like a reel, the engagement, and yeah, sure, with photos and stories you can like reach other people, but the likelihood of a reel hitting someone that you've like never connected with, and the ability to get into their world is like unreal. So for anyone who's still kind of on the fence, or is like really struggling to try to get onto reels, what would you say to them?
Just do it. Just like find one. Like, you don't overthink it. Like, I know people get so overwhelmed with like the transitions and stuff. Like, dude, I posted so many transition reels that were just hot garbage. Like, I look back at them and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I posted that, but I won't delete it because you're not supposed to delete them. So I just leave it. I'm like, well, it's the early stages. But you can go way simpler. Like, my most engaged reel has 2 million views, and it's like a 8-second video, and I'm not even doing anything. And I like videoed it not knowing what I was going to caption it, and then I saved it and then captioned it like a month later, and it went nuts. And it's like this, so like the simplest things blow up. And it was very controversial. People were fighting a lot, but I wasn't a part of it. Like, people were fighting on my page, and they were just like creating more engagement, and I wasn't even part of it. Like, I never responded back. They just kept fighting.
Yeah.
And it was actually hysterical, but it's crazy because I thought that was like totally neutral. Like, I didn't think that anyone would even be mad about it. I didn't know it was controversial. Like, yeah, it's crazy interesting. We just find a super simple one, and just do one video and just sit on it for a little bit, and then have a few drinks and post it. Like, honestly, sometimes, and don't watch it. Like, don't keep watching yourself and picking yourself apart, because people hate looking at their own faces.
That's
right?
a pro tip. Don't watch your own reels.
Yeah, don't watch it. You hate looking at your own face, and you hate listening to your own voice. So just like post in, own it, and be like, nah, this is what I got. And then see what happens, because it's kind of fun, and it's so awesome. People can really see your personality. Like, your Instagram, you're so limited to captions, like, especially because we don't post like photos of ourselves typically. So you're limited to, here's how awesome I am, and here's how cool my personality is in this caption that we like just are so like, you just think about it over and over again and you scrutinize and you're like, I shouldn't post this, or what should I post, or this is, and then you end up writing like, this beautiful couple eloped in this area, and then no one cares. So it's like, you have to figure out a way to kind of like insert your personality so people can actually see what they're getting, not just like, here's my pretty pictures.
Yeah, totally. That's a great invitation to just like flesh out other parts of your personality that maybe a couple or your, like even your friends or whoever may not be seeing, but there's part of you that you want to get out there. So, you know, I love like putting hip hop music, for example, to a reel, because that's like very me. And if somebody loves that track, it's like, cool, we're like connected in that way. And it's like my music, images to hip hop, for example, could be like the thing that is something to potentially flesh out. But the thing that I think a lot of photographers also may be missing, and I know I'm guilty of this too, is yes, reels are videos, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're pointing and dancing at like different things, but you can make it yourself. And you also don't need to film yourself. You have beautiful images and there's so many like templates out there, and there's so many businesses that wish they had images that they could put into a reel, and you have like tons.
Oh yeah.
So use your images, like at least start off with that. It's like the simplest thing. And
yeah,
find the music that you like. You know, even if you're listening to music, and this is one of my friends, Akeem, said this the other day. He was listening to a track and he was like, this track could make a really good reel. And, you know, we searched it and it was there. And you can even do that, you know, like, so really think outside of the box. Don't necessarily do what others are doing. Like really put your own personality into something like this and have fun with it. Because if it's not fun, it's definitely not worth doing. It's going to cause you stress.
Also, if you post like a collage of photos, or if you want to do that, if you start that video with your face, you'll get 1,000 times more engagement than if you start with photos. Or even if it's not your face, even if it's a video, like if you're posting like a series of photos from one wedding and you start with like a behind the scenes video from that wedding, you'll get more engagement, because any reel that starts with a video gets more engagement than just photos by itself. Key tip there.
Nice. Yeah. Laying out the pro tips. Thank you, Erin. Awesome. Cool, everyone. So we're coming kind of to the close of this conversation with Erin, but of course, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and then we're going to have like a little hangout once this portion ends. I wanted to kind of end off with a bit of like marketing for photographers who may not be thinking about SEO. And yes, we've talked about Instagram and Reels, and of course, like it's like one of many areas that a photographer could be in to market their business. SEO wise, what's kind of been your experience with that? And yeah, could you kind of walk us through your history with SEO and why you find that important?
Yeah, so I think the past couple of years I've been way more interested in SEO. Like I took the course, the art course that we did. What year was that? 2021? 2020? I
think it was 2020.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Those were the same year for me, so I don't know. So we did that course. That was awesome. And then I bought another course from Dylan Howell and Corey Potter, which was awesome. And they have a podcast I also listen to, Fuel Your Photos. It's really good. And it just like simplifies it, because SEO is so complicated and frustrating and makes you feel like you want to just like, you know, it's like you look at, you're like, I'm going to get SEO. And then I sit down and I look at it for 2 seconds. I'm like, I'm out of here. Like, I can't do this. So I also, I read a lot about SEO, but it changes so often also. Like there's so many things that change. You have to kind of stay updated. But what I figured out was that like I was putting so much into Instagram, which I've had like probably 5 friends in the last year lose their Instagram accounts. And it just puts it into perspective so much that something you put so much time in, now you have nothing. It's like when it just goes, like people hack them or they just get taken down and you don't know why, you can't get them back. You can't talk to anybody. And if you do that, like that, you can have like the 2-factor authentication or whatever that is too.
Yeah.
But pretty much you're putting all this time and money in something you don't own. So you own your website and it's like a no fail. If Instagram goes down tomorrow, you'll still have a business because you have your website with proper SEO. So I feel like putting all your time into that versus Instagram, like Instagram's for fun, I think. Like SEO should be like where you're putting your money. I guess Instagram ads too. I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know much about that. I've done it a couple of times, but no, I think that website SEO is like so intensely important. Get a course, because I'm not an instructor. I'm like,
Fair.
go take Sachin's course.
So you put in, effort into SEO, and the thing that I think a lot of photographers aren't maybe thinking about is that it's an investment. It's not necessarily going to pay off straight away, but once there'll be a tipping point, and then it will just work. And then, like you said, then it's maintenance. It's like kind of having a garden with no flowers, and then you're going to put all this effort in to figure out what flowers go where and what plants go where. How is it all going to work? I need to set it up. Oh, this isn't working. Let me tweak. But then it works. And then it's just about like watering the plants and giving them the food. And that's kind of how I see SEO being too, is, you'll have to do some heavy lifting. And this is the key. There's a lot of photographers not doing the heavy lifting, and that will segregate you from them first and foremost, if you do dedicate the time to do that. And then it's just about like maintenance and keeping it up, and it becomes a lot easier. So I find it like, actually, it can actually be quite fun and competitive in a good way. But you have to get to that point. You have to like lift and go through the shit before you actually get to that place. But I highly recommend doing that. And of course, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to chat to you there. Awesome, everyone. So Erin, thank you so much for being here, for sharing all that you have. What does the future look like for you? I know 2023, we talked about scaling down. What are you most excited for this year?
Oh, what am I most excited for?
In photography and outside of being a wedding photographer as well.
Well, recently, weirdly enough, I've started doing a lot of like photography for my son's 13. He plays academy hockey, and work on the Instagram account a lot over there. So I've been doing lots of reels and photos for hockey, which I find to be so awesome, because there's like zero pressure associated with it, because no one even knows it's me. So I'm really like getting into that, which is funny. I don't think I want to be a sports photographer, but I don't know, just actually being able to like feel like I'm part of my own family, like that would be nice. Oh, sorry, my dog just got loud. Yeah, just like this weird transition between like always being gone in the summer and actually being able to have weekends and like feel like you can take your kids places without being like, oh, sorry, I can't, have to work, or like people invite you on things on Saturdays and you can actually go. But professionally, I'm just excited to like fully invest myself in the clients I have, and like really work on client experience, and really, it's hard to do this job when you're tired, and not even physically tired, just emotionally tired, like run down, like you put your game face on, but you are not the same, and you know it. So I think just like being able to be honest and actually feel the way I want to feel, and showing up and being excited and like feeling refreshed, like that's what I get most excited for.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great to hear. Well, thank you again, Erin. Appreciate you. And let's keep in touch. I'm excited to see where this season goes for you, and to maybe do like a little recap maybe at the end of the season, and see kind of where you're at, what some of the wins and some of the lessons were as well. That'd be awesome. Thanks for being here.